promise you can't keep. Everybody live a little, everybody down. Yeah, yeah. I guess fuck it.
Plus, what you gonna do?
Man, I swear this is what I dream about. That's right. Baby, I'ma spend it all with you. Yeah. What you gonna do? Everything is jazz. That's right. Baby, I'ma spend it all with you. Yeah. Can I please have a standing ovation? 100 naked bitches in my dressing room waiting. That's a lot of blood for this fucked up nation. Fucked up nation. What you gonna do? Okay, ready?
Ready.
Welcome to That's Life Podcast, episode 12. I just wanted to open up by thanking everybody for tuning in to all the previous episodes. I hope you've been enjoying them as much as we have been enjoying making them. It's been a real treat and a privilege to be able to talk about some topics that are near and dear to my heart, and I know as well as Larin's heart. And thank you for listening to what we got to say. I think we got some good stuff to say, and we're going to continue to drop the knowledge that we have on you guys, and hopefully it's going to continue to resonate like it has been. So thank you for that. Without any further delay, we're going to get into today's topic, and today's topic is about non-judgment. I know that could be taken in a couple different ways. The way that it's going to be explained, though, is how to move through life with using non-judgment, because stuff is going to come up. You're going to want to judge situations, people, places, things, and that's somewhat natural to have happen, but it's kind of what you do with those thoughts as they arise. And we're going to kind of share our experiences with how maybe judgment has stopped us in the past, whether that even be judgments of ourselves ultimately, and how that reflects into our lives. So that's the topic we're covering today, and I'd love to introduce my lovely co-host, the beautiful Larin Allison.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
I think it's Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. I
Yeah.
hope you guys are having a great week so far. I'm glad to be doing another one. We're on a roll.
So let's keep this party going.
Let's keep this party going. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm so grateful for all of you. I've been having people hit me up even more saying they've been binge watching or binge listening to these, so it makes it that much more worthwhile to keep making them.
Definitely, and it keeps, like, another good reason why we're making them too is, like, before we did this podcast, you presented a good article because you were like, I wanted to do some research into this before we started speaking in this topic. So not only maybe we already are kind of understanding a concept, but it will allow us to go into and expound upon the concept.
Yeah, definitely. This is a topic that I know that I have personal experience in just from my life, but because I knew, like Jordan said, because I knew that we were going to be talking about this, I wanted to look a little bit more into it from other people's perspectives, and I'm learning along the way about each of these topics even more than I already do have experience in.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to ask you a question, jumping right into the topic.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think judgment has impacted your life? The judgment of people, places, and things, and then ultimately yourself.
So judgment for me is a big one. You know this. We've had this conversation a lot. This is something that I've struggled with a lot throughout my life, and I believe it does stem from me judging myself very, very harshly and being my own worst critic, as a lot of us are. But that definitely has bled into me judging other people is probably my biggest one, because I'm very open-minded about a lot of other things. I mean, not always. In the past, I know that I could have judged places and maybe foods or something like that, which times I definitely have. But I think my personal biggest one is myself and other people, and which in turn has created a lot of isolation for me, because I have been judging people kind of how they say, don't judge a book by its cover. And I'm definitely to blame for that in the past, which has probably prevented me from creating some long-lasting relationships or friendships or any kind of ships with people, because I would just think maybe I wasn't judging them for who they were, but I immediately would just think that they would judge me. And so I wasn't even giving certain people the time of day, because I isolated myself through, you know, the things that I have done and who I quote unquote was as a person. And so I would literally just assume that they were going to judge me, and so then I was literally judging them for judging me before that was even a thing. So that's not fair to the other person, because they might not even care or even think twice about it, but I'm like I have these preconceived notions about what I think that they are going to think about me. So that's just a really twisted way when you actually break it down.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that from my own experiences, and like I know in the past I was accepting of people, but I could still be very judgmental of them, or judgmental of music, or judgmental of art, or just judgmental of life, judgmental of how somebody else maneuvered, and like, that's not how I would have done it, like they should have done it like this.
Yeah.
Rather than just accepting the situation, realizing that most of the time it doesn't have any impact on my life, and everybody's going to move differently. They're all at different levels of their life and have different lessons to learn. So whatever somebody's doing might not make sense to me, but that's okay. It doesn't have to make sense to me, and it's not my place to put myself in a position where I'm the one, I have the final say of how somebody's maneuvering through life. Like it's not my place ultimately. Like I need to worry about my life and how I come across, and I know that I wouldn't say it's held me back a lot, but it's definitely probably held back my own personal growth. And then also it coming back to the fear of like me judging other people definitely made me be my harshest critic. And like, as you're aware, I've told you this a bunch of times, like people could say the nicest things to me and tell me how great of a person I am, and I still am like, I mean, I believe the great aspect, it mostly just has to do with like how I feel about my looks. And then somebody could be like, you're so handsome, or you're so attractive, or like any of it, and I could be getting hit on or flirted with or whatever, and I still am like, I don't necessarily believe this, but I know that in the past I could be a very harsh critic on people's looks and how I would perceive them. Like me also just being equally, if not harder, on myself, like picking myself apart, like, oh, you got a little bit of fat on your, like around your midsection, or your hair looks stupid, like to myself, like your hair looks stupid, or like it's a bad hair day, or you don't have any hair, or like all of those things. And then like, therefore I still would, like, I'm not going to not talk to anybody because of how they look, but definitely the thoughts, but like that's not my place to be so critical of them and like really look past the exterior judgments that I would potentially have on myself and potentially have on other people, and like really get to talking to them. So it's definitely been interesting. The non-judgment thing has been I'm aware of in my experience for probably about the last 6 months is where I've been really aware of it, which I'm happy you brought out with the article that you brought out, which we'll include in the show notes. It's kind of how to mindfully catch your thoughts while you're going towards judgment. So obviously, if you're not familiar with mindfulness, it's just perceiving each moment to moment as it comes, and taking the moment for what it is, and recognizing the thought for where it's at. See the thought, move through the thought. You don't need to identify with it. You don't need to expound upon it. You just see the thought. You catch the judgment, and you're like, okay, I'm probably judging this person or this situation or this thing. I don't need to judge it. I'm going to move on from it. Like, I see that. That's not how I want to be. I don't want, like, I don't know. I don't know this person. I don't know this situation. I don't need to judge it. You let it go. You move through it. So that's what I have been trying to do the last 6 months, where I get stuck. And I mean, not even getting stuck. I use that mindfulness tactic that you brought out in the article. Like, even before you read that, I was like, oh, that's what I try to do, because like it also says in the article, is it's almost impossible to not, like, it's almost human nature to just judge things.
Yeah.
So
do
I'm
that.
much better at catching myself in it and like reminding myself of not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I notice that I get stuck on, which is silly, is when I see other people judging other people, I'll judge them for their judgments of other people.
Yes! Oh my god, that's such a good point. I've been thinking about that lately too. Since I've been practicing non-judgment, because I have been, you know, in my past, I have been a judgmental person towards people, and I totally know what you're saying, because I've been doing that too, where I hear other people judging other people, and then I'm judging them for judging other people.
Yeah,
or situations.
I just find that interesting, and it's not even that I'm judging them. Like, the judgment that I have is still a judgment. I'll call a spade, but it's just like, oh, well, why are you judging this person?
Yeah. Like you shouldn't be judging them.
Yeah.
But I'm judging you to not judge them.
Yeah, even if I maybe agree with the person's judgment, I might be like, I see why you're making that judgment, but like, how does that judgment really affect your life?
Yeah.
Like, why do you even care about that? I know it doesn't hold any bearing whether, like, oh, Donald Trump got arrested and I'm so happy about that. Like, screw the Republicans, they all deserve it. I'm like, why are you judging this so hard?
Yeah.
Like, what does it matter to you? Like,
Yeah.
you live in some state and you're not a politician and you're a working class American. The fact that some ex-president's getting arrested is like really lighting a fire under you to go do what? Like, go judge? Like, I don't know. I don't understand it, but like, that's a good example of like where I'm like, why are you judging somebody so hard for nothing? Like, but that's what I'm working on that as well, of just like accepting people for who they are, where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to, like, maybe you have suggestions for this, because there's probably part of my ego when I see something like that. I kind of want to explain kind of what we're explaining in this podcast to them, but I catch myself, like, first off judging, and then also being like, you're operating from a place of ego. Like, you shouldn't have to force this conversation because somebody's doing something that you see as judgmental and potentially harmful to them. Like, it's not harmful to you. You're just allowing this space in your life to take and like maybe get you a little bit irritated. But
was the judgment something that you witnessed from outside, or was it brought to you?
Oh no, it was witnessed from outside. Just like scrolling on Facebook and seeing something.
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't the time or the, like, especially on social media. But it still is like, there's something inherently part of me that feels like I need to tell them, like, there's maybe a less stressful way to operate, but I know that it's not my place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best way to do that is kind of what we're doing, is to just post video podcasts and videos. Maybe do a talking video and post it on your Facebook or so that people see it. Because when you were saying that, it reminded me of an instance the other day when I was on Instagram and I saw this girl post a reel, and she was talking about how people were so upset about the blue check marks on Instagram and how people can pay for them, and all these celebrities or whoever that had the blue check mark already were freaking out about it. And she was like, why are you guys tripping? Like, why are you so mad right now? She's like, I think it's a good thing, because there are people that have, multiple fake accounts of them that people are stealing their content. And so this way you can get verified, and so you know who the real person is. And she actually changed my perspective, because when the blue checkmark came out, I was judging and I was kind of making fun of people that I was like, oh, like, now everyone's gonna buy the check mark, and then when I watched that video, that actually changed my perspective, and I was like, oh, I'm glad that I saw that video, because it made me think of it in a different light. And so I think that posting videos are really it depends on who's gonna be receptive to them, but they can be very monumental for people. Like, and I don't even really know this girl. I just started following her because she's kind of in the space of, mentoring and personal coaching and stuff like that. And I just came across this video, and I was like, I was probably supposed to see that, because I was judging, and then that video came up and it totally changed my perspective. So I think just sharing information like this in hopes that people will see it, and hopefully they have an open enough mind to where it might change their perspective. If not, at least look at someone else's perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And also, like, that's just the one example of where I feel like I'm not even stuck. It's just like the feelings of judgment come up for me now is like kind of what I was telling you. But ultimately, I do feel like this is a very important topic because I have noticed the positive effects in my personal life where if I do catch myself potentially judging a situation or a person or whatever the case is, that I'll allow myself to let go of the thought and just like approach it like it's a new experience or something new. And life tends to be a lot more peaceful that way. I'm not getting so caught up in like this like a bunch of fluff nonsense trying to like judge something or force my will. And it makes my life a lot less stressful. And like leading into the next point, I think there's a difference between judgment and discernment. I'm going to use an example to explain that. If you're applying for a job at a company and you're seeing if it's a good fit, you have to see if they have the right benefits. Say you have a family, you want to make sure they have health insurance, you want to see if their work-life balance is like, you want to see where the position could lead to, you want to read reviews, what past employees said about it. That's not judgment, that's discernment, because you're making such a permanent decision that's going to impact you and your family's life, and you're doing it knowing who your true nature is, what's best for yourself, and you have to make an informed decision.
Yeah, I feel like discernment is literally researching.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of view it.
Definitely.
I feel like that's a synonym for it.
Definitely. So I just wanted to clarify that too, because there needs to be you do need to be discerning in life, and that the same could go for even relationships. I don't want to like the discernment is there is if like you give everybody the time of day, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You have boundaries for yourself, and if people are crossing your boundaries, then you're in the right to potentially eliminate those people from your life. Or you see them, maybe they're not even crossing your boundaries, but you just see the way that they're moving and it's not in alignment with where you're trying to go. If like you're trying to help people better yourself, learn along the way, and then this person is just, they're like, yeah, I think I'm going to start selling drugs and I'm just going to start distributing that, and like I got no goals, like I'm cool, I'm making good money doing that. And then you're like, okay, well, you could do that, not judging you for that. Everybody has their entitlement to live their life how they want. But I know that for myself, I don't want to be around that type of energy that's putting that out there. So like I'm going to kind of fall back and cut my ties. So
yeah, I mean, I think the judgment, so kind of like with the article we were reading, I'm really glad that we found that and I will be sharing it. But I think that judgment takes it back to black and white, because it literally categorizes things as good or bad. So that's like if you were to look at this person and they said that and they told you that they did want to go do these things, and if you're judging them, you're like, this equals bad, they're a bad person, and you're totally just completely taking out the rest of the aspect of this person and categorizing. That's why I hate the words good and bad.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say the word hate either, but I strongly dislike the words good and bad. I try not to use them as much as possible, because once I started learning that, it really does. So I'm going to shout out Brian to posting the video today, because this is kind of correlating with what he said. So basically about your past experiences can be affecting what you allow your future experiences to be. And that's literally what judgment can do, because let's say you go to this restaurant and let's say it's a Mexican restaurant and you have a bad experience there, and you in your brain are just equate Mexican restaurant equals bad. So you are literally changing your future into not letting you have open experiences. There's millions and millions of amazing Mexican restaurants, but you went to one that you didn't have the best experience at, so you're just categorizing it into bad.
Yeah.
And so you're not allowing yourself to have more beautiful experiences that you could have that may possibly be amazing. Definitely. The best food you've ever had, you know?
Definitely.
So
That's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought that up about like categorizing things into black and white, because prior to this, for years, I would get irritated when things would be made into just black and white matters, like right or wrong, because I do feel like everything is situational and intention based, essentially, with why people are making decisions the way that they are. Like, what were your intentions in making the decision? Like, what, like, just so there's a little bit of understanding there for the situation. But when it's just like, nope, that's bad, like that's good, I could do that, I can't do that, it's...
Well, people do that with people too.
Yeah, definitely, totally.
They maybe go on a date with somebody and they say that their profession is a certain thing, and then the next person they meet, it's the same profession, and they're already judging them.
Oh, definitely.
They're already judging them, and they don't even know who this person is. They're just like, I know this one person that's in this profession, and I don't like them. They're categorized as bad.
I've been judged as that before too. You actually, I don't remember too much specifics about the date, but I do remember like somebody found out I was an electrician, and then like they had this preconceived notion of how all electricians were, and they thought I was going to be the same with like, because their ex-boyfriend was one, and they thought I was going to be like the same, and I'm like, not all electricians are like that. Like, I don't think that's the case, but so I'm glad you brought that out. But yes, ultimately life is not black and white, and discernment needs to be used, but also like what is the reason why you're discerning? Is it discernment or is it a judgment? Is somebody doing, is it something that's gonna impact your life and like your family's lives, or is it you're just looking from the outside, has no relevance to your life, and you're trying to make it like you're just second guessing why a person's moving a certain way?
And you know what, another thing that I just thought of too is that, and this is from personal experience as well, so I am going to call myself out on this one. I don't do this anymore because I've learned a lot, but in the past, I would judge things that people had that I wanted. So, and I haven't been able to get yet. So I think a lot of people do that with maybe people that are wealthy, and they have nice cars and they have nice houses, and they're judging these people because they want that thing that they have and they haven't found a way to get it, and they're bitter about it, and so they're hiding that and just using the judgments to cover that.
Definitely.
And I learned not to do that, because if you're judging something in a negative light, you're not, okay, if you think that money is bad and you think that that nice car is bad, or you think, then you're never gonna get those things.
Yeah.
You want them so badly, and you're just sitting there and judging them from the outside, but internally you really, really want them. You'll never get them.
Definitely. And then on that being said, I feel like the people that are practicing non-judgment and they're getting after what they want, then obviously they're like, you're concerned about your life essentially, and like your cup is much more filled up, so you could help other people.
They're not worrying about you.
No.
They're not worrying about judging other people.
No.
They're happy for other people.
No, definitely not. And just coming from a non-judgmental place that are actively trying to pursue that mindset, it just makes life so much easier. I can't stress that enough. Like, you don't have to understand why everybody's doing something and quantify it in your head with numbers or facts. Like, if it's working for somebody else and that maybe it doesn't necessarily align with you, it doesn't have to. It's not your place to call them out on that and try to make them believe your ways. It's like what religion does, essentially. It's like, well, this is what this says and you need to abide by it, otherwise you're a sinner and you're going to go to hell. Like, who is it? Like, then they label it supposedly God is the judge of all things, which, okay, but then who's doing the judgment in lieu of God? Like, it's usually a group of appointed men or some religious leader that's interpersonally, they're the ones that are like, oh yes, I've been inspired by God to do this judgment upon you, and now you're shunned. Like, it's very...
Because he can speak to God and you can't.
Yeah. And like, he has a better relationship. Like, God lets him know about the judgments he's thinking and like doesn't let anybody else know, which is like...
It just needs to report back.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's ultimately just coming from that. It's judgments hurt yourself, and with the judgments, I feel like in some cases it's almost done as a means of where you feel like you have control or superiority over somebody, where you're like, well, I'm in a place where I could judge them, and
yeah, I guess we shouldn't judge them then.
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't judge them. Exactly, that's what I said. I get caught judging the people that do the judging. So all I get in that case, glad you called that out. This episode's funny. It's hard, guys.
Yeah, it's not.
So that in that case,
Yes.
You need to move with grace and understanding and patience for yourself and other people. Wish them the best. Hopefully they catch themselves. This is the purpose of this podcast, is to ultimately just be less judgmental, approach every situation like it's a new one, approach every person like they could potentially give you a different experience if you have not had the best experiences with them in the past, and just be kind, loving, and understanding. It's not our place to judge what other people are doing, and unless they're gonna hurt themselves potentially. But even then, like, no, I don't want to see anybody die. But if they're doing something that maybe is borderline, like, it's still not really your place. But I like to judge anybody. You just gotta let live and let live.
Yeah, I fully agree. And it's not always easy. And I am really glad that we read that article, though, because it did say that it is human nature to do that, and it did say that in certain instances that it is a good thing. There are benefits that come out of it, but when you are letting it go out of control and you're not being mindful of the judgments that are coming in, and you're just taking it and you're just constantly judging every person, place, and thing that are in your existence, then that becomes detrimental to you and your experience.
And ultimately, treat yourself kinder, with more love, be less judgmental on yourself, especially if it's on the superficial things, we'll call it, like appearance or status or material things, and you're comparing yourself and judging yourself against like all the things you don't have. Like, be easy on yourself with that. It's not a fun road to go down. You need to focus on what you're grateful for and what you like about yourself, and then that'll multiply. Not focus on what you don't have and what you don't look like or what you're not doing, because then it just makes it worse, and it makes it harder on yourself to get those things.
And I know that it can be difficult in the beginning, because this is something that I've been trying to practice for a long time, and I still get caught up sometimes, but when I do start to judge myself, it is so much easier now to get my head out of that space and to start thinking more positively. And even if you can't go straight to positive, even if you're judging yourself super negative and you're like, I can't go from thinking that I'm the most hideous thing or this or that to just gorgeous, like, I don't believe that. And so just try to go neutral. Just try to not say the harsh, mean things first. Like, the first step is just try to avoid those. Or if you do start to think those, then re-guide your thoughts into something more.
I don't think avoidance is ever what you want to do, but I think just being able to, I think neutrality is a good place to start, but feeling it and not necessarily letting it get to you is a big start.
You can think about something and understand that it's there, but you can also redirect your attention. Definitely, and you don't have to sit and like dwell on the same thought over and over again for an hour thinking about how ugly you look, because that will just take you down a really bad spiraling path in your head, and that's something that I've done well too many times. But after what I was going to say is it just takes practice. At first it's going to feel foreign and you're going to not really believe yourself, but after so many times practicing it, it really does get easier on not judging yourself. And in turn, starting there first and not judging yourself, it really does help you stop being so harsh on others.
Definitely, I agree. And this is a call to action for everybody out there. I want everybody that's listening to this or sees the Instagram post, whatever the case is, to start trying to catch yourself when you're in the process of judging something. Just catch yourself. That's all you gotta do. And then try to redirect your thoughts. Just be aware of it. Maybe even start counting how many times in a day you start picking something apart, picking yourself apart, picking a person, place, or thing apart, and just catch the thought and redirect from there. So that's what I'm actively trying to do. It's definitely, like I said, it's worth the effort, and eventually it does become a little bit easier, because even when I do catch myself starting to judge something, like you reminded me, which I'm appreciative of that, because that's where it gets tricky for me, is when it goes into judging people that judge, like I said. But it does get a little bit easier for all like other aspects when I'm just catching myself. Like, I'm like, oh, dude, why are you doing this right now? Like, you don't need to do this. You're good. and then just kind of moving on. But
sometimes when I catch myself doing this, if it's to other people, usually I've even said it to you before, and I don't know where I heard this, but if you catch yourself judging somebody in a negative way, then when you do try to catch yourself, try to think of at least like 3 to 5 things, like compliments that you could give that person, and that really reminds you, or it helps you catch yourself when you do, because then it makes you actually have to think in a more positive light. And so then the next time you go to judge somebody, you might stop yourself before you're like, oh nope, I was gonna do that, but I'm just gonna not, or I will, and then I'll list off positive things about them.
Definitely, I think that's a good, helpful hint. So as far as this topic goes, I think this podcast is going to be a shorter one in comparison, but I thought this was a very important message that could get out there. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up, but...
No, I just really advise people to listen to this, but to read the article that we post below. It's really short. It's a really good read. It's pretty straight and to the point, but it makes you look at it in kind of a different light that's very easy to digest.
Definitely, and I think this might be another topic that's we'll either have a full episode on as our awareness gets kind of more drawn into it and we learn more over surrounding it, or it'll come up in other podcasts, because I think it is very important that we're going to continue to always practice this now for the rest of our lives. We're obviously going to probably be able to get in more depth into it with different circumstances or different maybe thoughts through our conscious experience of how we are able to maneuver through it. But anyway, it's a super important topic.
Yeah, and I also want to bring in too, so not even just non-judgment towards strangers, but I'm going to bring this into our relationship, because when we started practicing non-judgment towards one another, that's when stuff really shifted too, because I don't see you as just this person that I like to take your quote unquote good parts and then I judge your bad parts, and that's not unconditional love. Unconditional love is looking at your partner, whoever the person may be, and taking all of the parts of them and not judging the parts that may not be the most comfortable for you to hear. And so that's
experience.
And so
that's a beautiful point. I'm really happy you thought of that. That makes a lot of sense. And then ultimately it's just everything outwardly is a reflection of what we have going on internally. So the same goes why we're not unconditionally loving ourselves if we're judging ourselves. So it's the same that's in any relationship, whether romantic relationship, friendship, whatever the case is. So that was an amazing point. I'm really happy that you brought that out. That being said,
I think
that's all we got to talk about today. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. We got a ton more content coming out for you guys. You could go follow us on our Instagram page. You can follow the lovely Larin Allison on YouTube and Instagram.
I just changed my username, so my new name is the Larin Allison.
Yeah, on both platforms, on IG and on Instagram and on YouTube. And I just wanted to say a big shout out to you for the story that's unfolding before my eyes and has been unfolding for some time. Like, keep stepping into your power. It's truly inspiring. I know that we're gonna have a podcast on that. You're gonna kind of tell your story, correlate it with other stuff, and then kind of explain where you're going with it and how you want to help, because I think that message is truly life-changing, not only for yourself, but could be life-changing for other people. But that being said, thank you for tuning in to episode 12.
Love yourself and love everyone else.
And don't judge them. That being said, we're out.
Good job, baby.
Good job. Oh, we gotta take pictures.
Hey.
Can I please get a standing ovation?